Hello everyone. I bet you didn't expect this, did you? To be truthful, neither did I. My goodness, 8 years. Well, just under 8 years as I'm recording, but whatever. And yeah, I don't know. It's been ages, hasn't it? I hope you're all doing well. I've had a lot of things go on since I last made videos, I tell you. Yeah. So when I last left YouTube, I said I was going to actually make some more videos, and assuming I've put the intro up, I may not have done, I did actually record more, and then in the end I didn't upload anything. I think I just got to a point with YouTube where I didn't really have the confidence, and I just didn't do it. So where have I been at any rate? As I left YouTube in the past, I was having issues with my job. I believe I said that, where I was not sleeping well at all. I was getting like 2-3 hours sleep a day tops in the week for an early morning job, and I just couldn't cope with it. And also there's the whole, I'll get onto it in a bit about my feelings on YouTube as a whole. But yeah, I think my job kind of got in my way, because mentally I just couldn't cope with it. And as time wore on, I ended up, my pattern did change in the end. I ended up changing to afternoons and stuff, which fixed one problem and created more, unfortunately. So I was getting sleep most of the time until near the end, and then I had other issues to deal with at work. I'm obviously not going to go drastically into those issues, but I was a retail assistant, and I ended up just being on the till all the time. And that really got to me after a while, because you just say the same 5 things over and over again, and there's no variation in your day, and you just get all the crap to deal with, you know. And even just getting a break sometimes can be a chore, and it just wasn't fun. And like I say, I'm not going to go massively into anything else on that front. But what I will say is what the tipping point was for me in the end was when the pandemic hit. Yes, that thing that we've largely probably all forgotten at this point, right? So, yeah. Once that hit, I ended up going on furlough like a lot of people did. And I think that gave me... I was reaching the end of my tether anyway with it at that point. Like the November before, I think mentally I'd just said enough was enough. And I was obviously thinking about potentially how to leave. We'd already had... I forget if it was 2 or 3 at that point. I think it was 3. 3 potential redundancies at that stage. And as you can imagine, you're having a bad job to begin with, where you're not paid anything, and then you can't even be sure you're going to keep your job. The pandemic had hit, and I had the furlough, and I think that gave me the time to process. Because when I came back, it was all a very frightening time anyway, I think, at the time. You know, worrying that we're all going to die from it and stuff, and... yes, it is a very nasty virus, as has been proven. It's, I suppose we should be thankful in a way now it's not quite as bad as it was. You know, with time, with the vaccine, and with people getting it and then having some immunity. But anyway, don't go too much into that. So yeah, in the end, I'd come back from the furlough, and that first week back was really good because there weren't any customers, and I just had the co-workers, and it was alright. And I thought, you know what, maybe actually I can do this after all. But of course, 2 days in, once they'd reopened the doors, I was like, I can't do this anymore, because I just went back to square one. Plus I was having to wear all that PPE for quite a while. That just made me boiling hot, and especially in the summer it nearly killed me wearing all that crap. And I just couldn't do it anymore. Like, I tried so many times to try and get the situation changed in my workplace, and it wasn't happening. So in the end I left. I resigned in June 2020. And that was over 3 years ago. And I still haven't got work yet. And it's not per se because I don't want it. I mean, well, if I'm being completely honest, I don't really want to work. But I appreciate that I obviously will have to make a living somehow, and I want to work towards something so I can be a bit more dependent, because I don't believe in it making you independent, really, because you're still dependent on a job, aren't you? So a bit more independent, I should say. Sorry, I think I said dependent before. So yeah, I would ideally like to work towards that, but I've spent the last few years trying to fix myself mentally. because obviously all that stuff, caused me a great deal of anxiety and depression. And it's not something that... I think I've struggled with those two things for at least the second half of my whole life. And it's not also helped by another condition I have, which I don't think I've ever mentioned before online. And that condition being OCD, which I'm sure most of you will know is obsessive compulsive disorder. It isn't the most fun thing to live with. Let me just say that much right now. And that also obviously makes anxiety and depression worse. It's all interconnected really well, unfortunately. And a lot of people have this really silly idea or over-the-top idea of it just means I want to wash my hands 1,000,000 times, or I have to check the doors are locked 1,000,000 times, or whatever it is. And I have done both of those things where I've had to wash my hands and check doors and things, but it's not been a constant. I'm not going to specifically say what the main issue I have with it is, just because it's a bit of a weird one, I think. Obviously you get like intrusive thoughts as well, and I just have to deal with those. There's not much I can do. I can't stop them. But I can try and control them as best as I can, try and ignore them, try and do something else to take my mind off of it. And I think largely I've been able to come to terms with it, because I was diagnosed back when I was early 20s with it, but I'd had it years before that. I think it basically came about for me when I broke my leg when I was 9. It came from the experience of that, because apparently I was treated badly in hospital by the nighttime staff, and obviously I don't remember any of this really now, but it was like apparently they'd put me into a side room or something and lock me in overnight or something because I wouldn't shut up. I don't remember exactly what happened anymore, and maybe that fueled a lot of the OCD triggering in me. And I've in terms of trying to get better, I've been trying to get help for that, but apparently they don't want to know, because I've been trying to get help for some physical conditions as well. Not massively major, I don't think, because at this point, if they were, I'd probably be dead. I don't think that it's serious, because if it, like I say, but just my GP is just not good at all. And what really did for me was what happened last year, which I'll come to shortly. But anyway, I tried to get help for my problem, obviously, and I did the test, the diagnostic test, and apparently I didn't score highly enough. And I had a conversation with somebody for over an hour, I believe, and I went as deep as I've ever gone. I've never gone so deep with my thought processes. I've said stuff to this person I'd never said to anybody, literally anybody, not my best friends, not my mom, nobody else. And all that just for them to say at the other end of it, oh, you haven't scored highly enough, so we're not going to give you CPT, we'll just give you a couple of PDFs. And I just thought, if I'm not ill enough in your mind, why did we just have an hour-long conversation? Well, why didn't you just say, do the basic, are you feeling suicidal or want to hurt anyone else, and then say, we haven't scored highly enough and move on? Like, that's all that conversation needed to be at that point. It just wasted my time. And I just thought, you know what, it's just really not worth it. This health system here, man, it angers me. It genuinely angers me. So I'm basically having to do the best I can on my own. So then when you figure in what happened last year was the worst year of my life, I think. In fact, no, I'm pretty sure I would say it was. For the longest time, I would have said 2002 was my worst year. Because that year, it was just before that year I lost my cat. And then I lost my granddad in that year. And I lost my dog in that year. And then on top of that, 3 days into sixth form, the person who I thought was my really good friend decided to drop me and say that I had a bad attitude. So that condemned me to 2 years of crap there. And ultimately, made it so I couldn't focus on my A-levels, and it just all went to pot from there as well. So for a year to have been so bad it could beat that, takes some doing. So what actually happened? Well, basically, it was, I think, a week after my birthday in 2021. My dad was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. And as you could imagine, that was not a great thing to hear. Now, the funny side note to this is he did smoke from 14 or something like that. But it wasn't smoking that did it. It was asbestos. Suspected asbestos. Because he used to go into... Like, he used to work around it, because back in the old days it was everywhere, I think. And then obviously they discovered that it was really harmful to humans. So they stopped using it. And that was apparently what caused his. Because it's so deep in the lung or something, there's a reason. But yeah, that's what happened there. So then obviously as his condition deteriorated, at first it was okay. But then last year, for most of it, it just got worse so quickly. We were just about to go on holiday actually as well, just before he got his diagnosis, but he felt too ill. So I haven't actually now been on holiday for 2 years pretty much. Which also sucks in its own way, but that's not the point here. He got worse and worse, and then by the end of it, obviously, he was basically having to be looked after 24/7. He couldn't really do anything. Mum bore the brunt of it, but I still had to help as well. And it got worse and worse and worse, and by the end of it, we'd both had enough. Well, I think all three of us had. He was on morphine by the end of it, and most of the time he didn't even know where he was. And on that last day, you know, another stressful night, another worried night, and not sleeping properly and things like that, I said to my mum at something like 6 in the morning, I said, I can't take any more of this. It's driving me insane. And she basically said the same, and we were just about preparing to send him to the hospice because he didn't want to go to one. So obviously we respected his wishes for as long as we could. But then we said, we can't hack this anymore. We had to just accept it. We couldn't look after him anymore. So he was going, you know, for the best. It would be for the best for him to go. And on that day, I think it was that day, the family came over, like my brother, his girlfriend and my niece, and they all visited him, and they'd made a picture for him. And he was fairly lucid at the time, and that was this day. And then they went home, of course. After that, a few hours later, and after I'd had food, it was just before I had food, I think it was. But anyway, I'd gone upstairs just to have some time to myself at the computer, and then next thing, I'm being called by my mum on my phone, about 10:05 in the night, and she said to come down, and she sounded upset and everything. I came down, and yeah, I mean, he'd had a lot of periods where he had to use the nebulizer, that's what it's called, yeah, so he could breathe easier, because when they'd done a chemo, is it chemo or radio? Chemo, I think, no, radio, isn't it? When they'd done a procedure anyway on his lungs, they ended up putting a leak in his lungs or something, and fluid would go onto them all the time, and he had to use a nebulizer to breathe. But yeah, I came down to him with that on, and my mum in tears, and yeah, he'd stopped breathing. And we rang an ambulance, of course, and we'd rung several by this point beforehand. And was doing CPR, and I knew he'd gone, and I think she did as well. But there was me doing CPR, and I don't think I'm ever going to get rid of that image. But what really annoyed me was he'd put a do not resuscitate on his form, and yet the ambulance operator, like the desk operator, said, you know, you got to do it anyway. And I'm thinking, well, it's on his form not to. And I just felt so, as you could understand, that added even more stress, because I'm like, he doesn't want it. Why am I doing it? But yeah, the ambulance came round and pronounced him dead. And that was really upsetting. But I think that's pretty obvious, you know. And I think it took me quite a long time to really get over. A very long time. You know, especially given all the problems I was going through too, because I was also going through the mill with this program I was on for looking for work and getting stressed about that, and having to deal with this as well. Yeah, not the best. And I didn't feel like, I don't know how to put it really, but I just felt so lost. I didn't know what to do. I felt so miserable, you know. I was also going through other things as well. I don't know if I really want to discuss that at the moment. So then what's really happened after all of that? Well, what I've been doing, and I'll put it in the description and maybe even at the start of the video, is I have been trying to do Twitch in the whole time I've been away from YouTube, because I kind of didn't enjoy YouTube as much anymore. I felt like things were changing, people were moving on, and YouTube itself was moving on, and it just didn't seem to be something I liked, and there was so many hoops to jump through. Like, I couldn't even make a Let's Play without a false copyright claim coming in, and that annoyed me. And then Nintendo being really strict about it for a while, copyright, and same with Square Enix as well. And I'm just like, is it really worth my time? Because I can't make videos how I want to make them anyway. Because I had so many really good ideas, in my opinion anyway, for videos, and I just don't have the resources, I don't have the means, and I certainly don't have the money. But if I could have made these ideas happen, I think it would have been really fun. I'm not saying I'd be a massive YouTuber, but I think it would have made for some really good videos. And I mean, to be fair, I also lack confidence. I also lack so much confidence. It was insane, and I mean, it was so painfully obvious to see in my blogs that I didn't have any confidence. I've actually privated most of them now. I mean, I might end up privating them all. I don't know. Because I just hated watching it. And I mean, obviously a lot of, pretty much no one likes their old stuff when they watch it back. But I just didn't like the person I was seeing, I think. Like, it's just this person who just was so unsure of themselves all the time and just didn't really, I'll be blunt, didn't have anything going for them. And I mean, I don't know if I have a huge amount more going for me now, but the difference is I think I'm more self-aware of that. I'm not pretending that I'm anything special or anything. I'm just a person who's trying to get through life. And I did struggle with that for so long in my youth, because I was told I was going to do so well in life, and I got all these good grades, and I suppose as a daydreaming youngster I was going to change the world for the better. I only said take over the world then, but you know what I mean though, to change the world for the better and just make people happy and stuff. But the problem was, all I spent my time doing was making everybody else happy, or trying, and ignoring myself. That's why I stayed in my job as long as I did, because I was that afraid. I was so scared of leaving it because of what my parents would think and what they'd do. I just couldn't face it, so I wasted 12 years of my life there, nearly. When I should have left after 2 or 3, most. And back then I was young, I'd have had plenty of time, and employers would be looking at me and thinking, well, he's a youngster, we can mould him and he can do something. But obviously at nearly 37, I can't be moulded at this point, really. I don't want to be either, but that's not the point. The point is it makes it very hard to really do anything. Very, very hard. So really, I don't know where I'm going for that right now. I mean, I'd love to turn around and say, oh, I'll make YouTube a living or Twitch a living, but come on, that isn't happening. At least not to a huge extent. I mean, maybe I'll get lucky in years to come and have enough to have something of a living, or at least a decent side amount of money, but it's not realistic. There's too much against me. Because even if I was good enough, it's like, I can't compete with all these young girls, can I? I know it's cynical, but it's true. It's so true. You can't compete with that. It's impossible. Talent only goes so far. But that doesn't mean I couldn't do well if I tried. Potentially. I just couldn't, it would just be very difficult. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve with Twitch. In time. I know it'll take time. I want to try and build the channel there. And since all this has happened and stuff besides I haven't mentioned, I feel like I need to try and move on with my life. I need to try and leave the past behind. Because I've spent so long being stuck in it. And even last night, I'm struggling to process stuff from the past. And I'm sick of it and I need to move on. I need to move on and try the best I can and hope and see where we go from there. Because all this time I've been worrying about what might or might not happen. It just happens anyway. And I'm worried now about what might happen to my mom, potentially. I mean, there's no huge immediate concern. Maybe a minor concern. But it's not a definitive for me right now, so I could be wrong, and I'm hoping I am. But the thing is, even if that's not true, eventually she won't be here. And then I've got to... my life will suddenly become 10,000 times harder than it is at the moment. And I'm not saying for one second that my life is the hardest. It definitely isn't. But that doesn't mean it isn't hard. So, yeah. It would be amazing if you'd all come over and watch me on Twitch. Currently, at the moment, I'm doing Trials mostly, Trials Rising, because I've kind of got obsessed with that game. I'm at 2,600 odd hours, and I'm top 100 in the world, which, I mean, many people who've known me for years know I used to be really hardcore with retro games, and I'll get number ones on leaderboards and stuff like that. Being top 100 in Trials Rising far trumps that. The only major thing I haven't done yet, because I was working so hard on improving my speedrunning, was Black Belt, which is the hardest track in the game. I do that, it'll be by far the hardest thing I've done in the game. If we're talking official content, because there are harder tracks in the game. Track Central, which is a custom user-created hub thing. Yeah. I want to do other games as well. I have previously done Runner 2. I've covered Geometry Wars 3 a little bit, although that VOD got removed. I don't know why. But it was only a one-off anyway. I've covered Astro's Playroom. Ideally, I'd like to cover a few other games this year, or at least start one of them. I don't really know what the future is for YouTube for me, if I'm being completely frank. I really don't know. I'd love to be able to turn around and say, I'm going to make 10 million videos and actually see it through and have a real plan and say, oh, I'm going to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of next year or something, but I don't know. YouTube is such a different beast now, it's pretty much impossible to get anywhere on it. Unless you're one of those young girls. Or you get really insanely lucky or something. And a few people who actually do work their asses off get there as well. But other than that, it's not likely, is it? So, I mean, really for YouTube, obviously this video, if I upload it, which obviously if you are hearing this I have, some Trials replays, other random things. Maybe I'll edit some streams or some moments for YouTube. But actual original YouTube content, it's hard to know. Because, I mean, I used to do Let's Plays and that's what I wanted to do, and no one cares about those anymore. You know, apart from the handful of people already there who will get views anyway. I've made it an art form, you know, like Chugga Conroy and stuff. No one else has a chance now. I mean, I could try reviews, I guess. But that takes a lot of time and effort, and will I really get any traction with that? I mean, there's sketches in general, but once again, time and resources and all that stuff. And then there's shorts these days. I mean, if I could think of anything for shorts, that would probably be the way to go. But I mean, I had one idea last night, but then I thought, nah, it's probably not going to work. And I'd need more than one idea. And it's nothing that probably other people with more followers haven't covered anyway. So it's just like, well, what do I even do? Unless I'm going to invent a time machine or something and announce it, I'm not going to get anywhere. So I don't really know exactly what's going to happen. I doubt blogs are going to happen again, because I was never really that good at them. If I did do them again, it would take a different form anyway. It'd probably be shorter and a bit more... I was going to say concise, but that wasn't the word I wanted. Just coherent, I guess, but just not as waffly like I am here. So yeah, I don't really know. That's the thing. I might do a few gameplays here and there if there's remotely anybody left here who's even interested in my content now. And I wouldn't blame you if you haven't been. I mean, what amazes me is I kept getting subs for years after I left. And obviously I've lost some as well, but it's because my video got algorithmed. My Beach Buggy Racing video got algorithmed. It's at nearly 69k views. It might have hit it actually. I don't think it will have yet, but the other night it was at 68,800 something. and it just got algorithmed, and I suppose there's always that chance you could get algorithmed somehow. I don't know. I mean, I wish I could do something more like Viva La Dirt League or something and actually make proper videos, but I mean, they do get a ton of investment these days. But even when they didn't, they were still doing well. So, yeah. I just don't know where the YouTube side of things will go. So it seems a bit of a crapshoot to be like, hey, I'm back. Oh, wait, I might not be back. There will be content. I'm pretty sure of that, because like I say, I want to upload trials videos and stuff like that. And who knows, maybe I'll come up with something. But as it stands, I can't see it being too long an endeavour. I might even try YouTube streams. I think that's pretty much everything. I don't really think there's much else to say, because I've covered everything I want. Wow. See, nothing ever changes, does it? And it was a really fun time. Back when I was on, it was a really fun time, and I just need to let that go. You know, if I'm to come back now, I can't, you know, yearn for the good old days of watching retro gamers and doing Let's Plays, because it doesn't exist anymore. And I think if there's one thing that I want you to take from this video, and I don't typically like to be all moralistic here, but it's that life moves forward whether you want it to or not. And you need to make every moment count, which is the most cliched thing I know. But if there's nothing, if I've learned anything from this last year or so, you've just got to do what you want to do, as much as you can. And if you can't strive for it, and if you can't do that even, then you just, I suppose you have to stick at it till that time comes where you can. And if there is really literally nothing that can be done, make the most of the time you've got left, because you don't know when it's going to run out. This has been Atsuma Kareen. I hope you're all doing well, and I might see you again for another video soon. If not, I will be on Twitch. Feel free to follow me over there, and one day I'll get a Discord server set up as well. You'll be able to keep up with things better and we can have a chin wag, but for now, that's me. I'm signing off, and we may speak again soon. Take care.